Hello, and thank you for joining us for the last episode in the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Celebration Series, an 8-part live webinar event that will share the experiences and recommendations of female leaders in fire and emergency management. The EDI Celebration Series is a program of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs in collaboration with Firefighting in Canada through a generous grant from the Motorola Solutions Foundation. My name is Laura Aiken, editor of Firefighting in Canada, and today we are joined by Michelle Vandevord, president of the Aboriginal Firefighters Association of Canada and associate director for Saskatchewan First Nations Emergency Management. I am presenting this webinar from Burlington, Ontario. Burlington has a history rich in traditions from many First Nations, including the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Métis. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I speak from today is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of Credit. Our guest today, Michelle, is a Cree woman from the Musqueam First Nation and the first female president of the AFAC. She became president in August of 2020 and was instrumental in the development of the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council. She has been a firefighter for more than 20 years and is a mother, Kukum, mentor, and trailblazer for women in fire and emergency management and beyond. Today, Michelle will be sharing her career experiences and recommendations for increasing equity, diversity, and inclusion in the fire service. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type them into the chat box on your screen at any time, and we will address them during question period after the interview. With that, I'd like to start by asking you, Michelle, what kind of training or background did you have when you started in the fire service?
Good morning, Laura, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share my knowledge with everyone today, and I would also like to start by acknowledging that I'm taking this webinar from the traditional territory of Treaty 6. It's the homeland of the Cree, the Dene, Nakota, Saulteaux, and Ojibwe, and homeland of the Métis, and my First Nation community of Musqueam. So, can you just repeat the question again?
Absolutely.
I'm a little nervous. I'm going to admit I'm a little nervous.
That's okay.
Maybe that'll make me not so nervous. Thank you.
No problem. Let's talk about what kind of training or background did you have when you started in the fire service? Start at the beginning.
So when I first started in the fire service, I had no traditional firefighting background. But I did have a really huge background in volunteering through my grandmother and my mother. Volunteering was instilled in me at a very early age. So it was almost a natural transition to firefighting, and it made it a lot easier having that background and this huge love for my community and wanting to help.
And is that why you pursued this career path?
I actually wasn't trying to pursue firefighting at all. It was really a shoulder tap from a friend. He's like, hey, you should come out to the fire department, and I think you'd be great. And I didn't, really think about it at the time. And, he kept asking and asking. Finally, I went out to my first meeting, and like they say, the rest is history. I was one of the first females, and yeah, it's been a great 20 years, I do have to say.
That's good. So overall, how would you characterize your experience as a woman in the fire service?
Well, I'm fortunate. I started my career in my community with a volunteer fire department. So my uncle was the fire chief. All of my cousins were firefighters. So it was very welcoming later. But I still do remember my first meeting, and everybody's sitting around, and my uncle's going to introduce me to everybody. And he starts off by saying, well, boys, there's a girl in the fire department now, so you guys are going to have to start shutting the door when you use the washroom. And I was just taken aback. I was like, you guys don't shut the door? Like, what's going on here? Trying to play it off and joking, right? But right from the very first meeting, being singled out, and, everybody looking at me like it was almost like he was letting everybody know that, change is coming because there's a female here. So I felt a little threatened, but at first I was more angry. So I was like, well, that's how you're going to treat me, right? I'll show you, right? So yeah, and then it eventually got better, but I did, it's a lot of proving yourself, right? Being a female.
Absolutely. So how did you overcome some of those early hurdles? I mean, did you say something? What was your reaction at the time?
Well, I played it off as a joke, right? And then, I think the more that I showed up, right? The attending all the meetings and going to all the trainings, it was really just about proving myself and why I was there. I think was the question that the other firefighters had, right? Like, oh, is this just something, she wants to, she'll take it on for a little while and then quit because, within the fire service, they'd seen a lot of women come and go, try for a year or two and then they were gone. And I think after they realized I was here to stay, then things really changed, right? It was more of a family and, but it took a lot of, proving myself. And I always felt like I had to work harder and, be stronger and take on things that I wasn't really comfortable with. But it was always that determination to show them that I could do what they could do.
And so eventually became a leader in the fire service. And how would you characterize that experience?
Well, it really took a long time within my own department, which is sad. Watching a lot of promotions, and I blame myself as well for not speaking up and going after them. But at the same time, it was really disheartening and disappointing for, sitting with these guys for, 10, 15 years. And when promotions were coming up, my name wasn't being put on the table. And it really wasn't until I lost a close friend in the fire department and his position was coming up that I was upset. I think I'd been holding on to the anger for quite a while for not being promoted. And, he was such a close friend. I was like, if anybody's going to take that helmet, it'll be me. Right. So I finally stood up to myself for myself. And I'm so glad I did. And I wish I would have done it sooner. I really do. And now being a leader, helping First Nations across Saskatchewan with Saskatchewan First Nation Emergency Management. When I first applied for the job, which was actually through the Prince Albert Grand Council, it was them who seen the leadership in me as well, right? So, and I'm always and always will be forever grateful to the Tribal Council for putting that faith in a female. There wasn't any other officers in the department at the time who were females. So I think they really took the first chance on me to put me in a leadership role within this department. And I'm so very grateful and I acknowledge that all the time. And it's why I work so hard every day.
And so in chatting a little bit more about your leadership role in the fire service, maybe you could share with us how the Aboriginal Firefighters Association of Canada led to the creation of the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council.
So the Aboriginal Firefighters Association of Canada has been around for close to, I believe it's 31 years. And it's a great group of people who have dedicated their time, their volunteer time to really promote Aboriginal firefighting and services. And this has been a dream for so long. And to actually see the creation of a national organization, we're very fortunate to have long-serving members from Afac leading the creation and development. And it's through their dreams and everything they've been through all of the years, watching fires on reserves and deficiencies within departments. And it's really about building capacity to determine a First Nation's own fire and life safety needs. So it's not coming in and telling them, it should be this way. It's what do you need for your community? Because across Canada, we're all so diverse as First Nations people on reserve. Another very important project that the council is taking on is the National Indigenous Reporting System. It's incident reporting system, sorry. And that's very important because there has been nobody tracking on reserve fire incident deaths or just fires in general since 2010. So it's important for First Nation communities to be able to have all of that knowledge, the data, and really start building programs to suit what's happening on their lands. So I encourage any First Nations who may be watching today to check out the website. There's lots of programs and services that were built for us and by us.
Thank you. So on the subject of equity, diversity, and inclusion, what would be your top 3 recommendations for fire departments that would like to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce?
I think it all starts at home, right? Just building inclusive departments starts within. And people talk. People will know if you have a diverse department and how you treat everybody within your department. A very important one to me would always be pay equity, making sure that, you know, your females are being paid the same as your males within the department, and being aware of the biases within your departments as well, and being able to offer training when you do see a lot of those showing up in your department. There's some great teachings. I know even within my own organization, it was really important to me to make sure that the officers knew the background of First Nations on reserve and a lot of the challenges that we have that are so different, and just being able to have that compassion is important.
Do you have any suggestions for how people can better recognize their own biases?
I think you really need to acknowledge them. They pop up and show in many different ways. And what I've seen in the fire service is it seems to come out as joking a lot, you know, little bites there and bites here. And, you know, it comes off as jokes, but at the end of the day, you know, a lot of things can just be hurtful. And people really, I just encourage people to really learn the background of First Nations in Canada. You know, the real background of our story and what we've went through. And, you know, being in the fire service and leadership, hearing from, you know, fire chiefs across Canada who have this misconception that First Nations on reserve have all sorts of money for fire service in our communities. And it's really not the case. We struggle like a lot of our volunteer departments across Canada. We're struggling with retention. You know, we're volunteers at the end of the day, and we don't get paid for the dangerous jobs that we do. So that's huge for me, just to learn and have compassion.
Okay. And then for those who would be looking at becoming a leader themselves one day, what top 3 recommendations could you make for them if they're looking to be a leader?
Don't give up. You know, you need to believe in yourself, and I say that with such a big heart. The reason I am where I am today is taking chances and wanting to be a role model for females. I have 3 beautiful daughters at home, and when I first joined the fire department, it wasn't for myself, it was for them. It was always for my girls, to show them that they could do and be anything they wanted to be. It's why I work so hard in the fire department. I look at little girls, you know, when I'm in my turnout gear and I see that little smile and that little twinkle in their eyes, and it fills my heart. Always apply for the job that you deserve. You know, I have some regrets in my earlier career not taking the chance. Take the chance, apply for the position. And most importantly, always be the leader that you wanted for yourself. You know, I work hard every day to be the boss that I wanted, to be caring, to be kind, to be understanding. to recognize the diversity even in my own department, and just be a good person is important. And I just wanted to acknowledge, I think a few of my daughters might be watching, so I love you. I love you so much.
Did you take any sort of additional education or anything, kind of becoming a leader in the fire service, or was this released through personal growth and cultivating those characteristics?
For me, from the fire department, from volunteering, what's always been huge and a big passion of mine has been fire prevention, knowing that all fires are preventable. And in our First Nation communities, I actually took it upon myself to take the fire service, I'm trying to look at my wall, safety educator, fire safety educator, just so I had all the tools in my toolbox to be able to walk into a school and know what I was talking about, make sure that I was delivering the best program that I could. So when it comes to me, it's all about fire prevention and the kids and reaching them in the school. My mentor, so the person who gave me that first shoulder tap to join the fire department, we traveled all over Saskatchewan delivering fire prevention programs to our First Nations schools, and I sadly lost him in January to cancer. So another important thing that, you know, I've put on my plate as a passion to push forward is, you know, the dangers of this job as well, and the reality that at the end of the day, you do this as a volunteer across Canada, you know, on and off reserve, and you're risking your life, you know. So volunteers need to be treated better. They need to be protected by having insurance, making sure, you know, their departments are protecting them as well. And yeah, so it's huge. Fire prevention is what Randy loved and knew could change our communities and make them safer. And it's something I take on for him and in his memory, and it will always be a passion.
Absolutely. I'm very sorry to hear about your loss. And I think the fire service is lucky to have you championing fire prevention. It's absolutely a very important part of it, that's for sure. And couldn't agree with your sentiments more on our volunteers. That's for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing those insights and recommendations. Let's see what questions we've got here. Well, we have a lovely comment. We have great advice, Michelle. You're an amazing role model. So completely.
For my daughter. Just kidding.
Lori.
Oh, I was like, you hear one from Chelsea. That's probably my daughter if it's too crazy.
Okay.
Thank you, Lori.
Well, I've got another question. If you could give your younger self, like right at the start of your career, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Honestly, is to apply for the job. You know, apply for the job, speak up for yourself in meetings. Don't think you're less than. My biggest regret in my career is just not saying things in meetings when promotions came up, you know, kind of hoping that other people would, you know, recognize my years of service and what I've done for the department. And at the end of the day, it really needed my own voice. So using my own voice would be the biggest one.
It's a good one. Go for it, right?
Right.
And what character trait, you know, on your journey through the fire service and into leadership, do you think has helped you most in your career?
Oh, being stubborn. Being stubborn, right? If somebody told me I couldn't do it, then yes, I was going to try it. And like one thing that always sticks out in my mind was we were doing firefighting training, and I was deathly scared of heights. It took me all weekend. So we started our training on from Friday to Sunday. And it wasn't until Sunday I was able to climb up the ladder. And we were doing rescue techniques. So I finally, knees just shaking, right? And then they made me take down like one of the heaviest guys on the department. And it yeah, I could do this. The whole time my arms are shaking, my legs are shaking, right? But it was like, no, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, I'm doing this today.
So stubborn can be a great quality.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if that's the right word, but
All right, I've got a question here from an attendee. Do you believe time served on the fire floor matters before going for a promotion? If so, how long do you feel is enough?
it really depends on the dedication from the person themselves, right? So you can spend a lot of time on the floor but if you're the guy standing back and watching and not really participating in, you really you need to have the time on, hands on. You need to have the experience and actual fires, and it all depends on the person. I don't really have a number of years it takes. It's really on the individual themselves and how much effort they put into the job, really.
All right, good answer. Going to give another minute here for any more questions to come in. And while I wait for that, do you have any other thoughts or comments on the topics we've been discussing in general that you wanted to elaborate on, or anything else you want to add?
Oh, one thing I would like to stress is, so just in Saskatchewan, hearing from other fire chiefs that they'd always loved or always wished to reach out to their neighborhood First Nation. You could have an RM fire department or even a big city fire department with First Nation communities close by, and hearing from fire chiefs say, well, how do I reach out? Like I'd love to go out and I'd love to help them, or I just like to go have a chat with the fire chief or the community and, the chief of the community. How do I do that? I encourage everybody, if you can, and I know you do, there within the fire service, it's a brotherhood. So reaching out and extending, a welcome to your own department when you're training is huge. Building relationships with your neighboring First Nation communities. I was in a meeting once and there was a First Nation community and they were just building up their fire department, and they didn't have a truck yet, but they had all these dreams of what they were going to do. And he was talking about going to the neighboring community and he said, well, we don't have anything to offer an MOU or this partnership that I'd really like to start building. And I looked at him and I remembering another conversation from a fire chief, and I said, but you have you have passion and you have volunteers on the reserve that a lot of other communities may need. You have expertise of the land and knowledge of traditional things in your territory, not just on the reserve but around and about, right? So just extending a hand out to your First Nation communities for assistance. The creation of the National Indigenous Fire Service is doing that as well, and you can reach out and send a line to anybody. We have a comment section where you can reach out and feel free to reach out and ask those questions about how you can help, in an area, to reach out to your First Nation communities. I know they would appreciate it. And in turn, we just build capacity for fire and emergency services in a whole area.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. We've got a couple more questions have slid in here. So a follow-up from the previous question, same person asking, she's the only female in an all-male volunteer department. So if you're a dedicated gung-ho person, you're taking courses. So even if they've only been on for a couple years, should they not apply for a promotion or just go for it? You're kind of mentioning, go for it. Okay.
Always apply for it. If you're as qualified, just because you haven't been with the team longer than others, it's never going to hurt you to apply. You're always going to regret it if you don't. So apply.
Bottom line is go for it.
go for it.
Right.
All they're going to say is no, wait another year or get a little bit of experience. And it's also a great opportunity to find out what you can improve in from your fire chief. So, think of it as a learning experience as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And do you think you could ever be too old to start as a volunteer firefighter?
Never.
Yeah, this is an
I
interesting
think,
question.
yeah, but one I've heard before, and actually something I encourage all the time, across Canada, we are having such a hard time with recruitment, right? Like volunteering is just not what it used to be 10, 20 years ago. People, or especially for something where you're risking your life day in and day out and every call you receive. But with that being said, there's so many jobs within our volunteer fire departments. Not every job involves putting on the turnout gear and running to a fire scene. You could be putting on your turnout gear and helping with communications or safety, and there's so many roles. And there's life experiences too from older people, right? Like just everybody has experiences in life, and it all contributes to a fire department for sure. So yes, and also going the other way as well. I think a lot of times we overlook our youth in our communities as well. So even I always encourage starting junior fire departments for their members. We had a couple of new recruits within our department, and I actually, after losing my mentor Randy, who brought me up through the fire service, I was ready to quit this year. He was not only my mentor in the fire service, he was also my brother-in-law. So when I lost him, I was ready just to throw in the towel. And then two of his sons joined our volunteer fire department. It was like a 360. It was like, wow, I can't leave now. Like, and they brought this enthusiasm and, just watching them look at fire service brought this new energy to the whole fire department. So on both spectrums, yes, yes, yes.
Yes, I have a comment from Janine Caldbeck. Said, she had to laugh at the question on age, said, I will take a healthy 65-year-old with commitment to volunteering for community safety over a 20-year-old who just wants the t-shirt. For sure, right?
And honestly,
dedication's important.
And honestly, I don't think we have too many volunteer fire departments out there turning volunteers away. Like I said, there's so many jobs, and even helping with fire prevention, like there's this mother instinct, right? That just volunteering is something special in your heart, right? Something that you've grown up with or been handed down to you. And if you have that in your heart, then you can take it to a fire department by all means. Like, it's not an age thing. It's all about helping our communities, really.
Yeah, in fact, there's probably many people coming upon retirement soon that may be looking for things to do, and they should certainly not be overlooked. They're still healthy and dedicated, and they have lots of life experience to bring to the department. So
for sure.
Yeah. All right. I think that might be the end of our questions. They were good ones. Thank you, Michelle, so much for your time today, and our attendees for joining us. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to everyone registered within 24 hours. We hope you enjoyed this session, and hope you enjoyed being with us today, Michelle, and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.